The jogger crossed the road and headed towards the park. As he jogged down the bike track towards a university campus, he noticed that up ahead, some of the path lighting wasn't working. He intended to keep to the track and continue on through the darkness. He'd run this track nearly every day for the past 18 months, and he knew it pretty well. But something caught his eye. Up in the sky, above the university buildings, there was the most amazing light show. Colours and light swirling and strobing together. It stopped him in his tracks. He no longer followed the bike track, as it would take him through a huge clump of elm trees, and the overhanging foliage would block his view of those incredible lights. He diverted off the track and made his way through a large, open grassland area of the park instead. It was slightly out of his way, but it gave him the best view of this storm, or whatever it was. Finally, as he came to the edge of the park, the light show ceased. He crossed the road and entered the gateway of the camp. He stood for a while and tried to catch another glimpse of the phenomenon he had just observed, but it was gone. He was disappointed, but he made his way quickly to the dormitory so that he could tell his friends. Rachel became aware that she was standing in her bedroom, in front of an open window. She had been dreaming, she thought, that she was flying. Her fingers and her face were frozen with cold, and she hurried to close the window. She was only wearing a pair of flannelette pajamas, and they didn't offer much protection against the cold night air. Back in bed, her thoughts returned to her dream. She'd been flying, high in the air, above a large city. She was over a large park with huge trees. She seemed to be following someone. A lone figure, jogging along a path through the park. For some reason, her attention had been turned to an area away from the park. She hovered high overhead, over a group of large buildings. The lights surrounded her, and as she floated around, the colours seemed to be making their way right through her. She was lost in a sensation of happiness and peace. It had come as quite a shock to her to find herself standing in the open window. She had no recollection of opening it. In the warmth of her bed now, she began to drift back off to sleep. Just at that moment, when waking ends and sleep begins, she thought she heard a voice. "How's planet Earth, Rach?" "Stephen!" She sat up and switched on a lamp. There was no one in the room with her. Stephen, of course, was not there. He'd again moved to another state to attend university, after he'd received a basketball scholarship. She turned the lamp back off again, settled back down into her bed. Stephen, she realised, was safe. Once again, it seemed, she had somehow managed to manipulate the result of her visions and avert the course of disaster. Rachel had now finished high school and had been accepted into university. She'd happily settled into a new life and had made a few new friends since the beginning of the year. She hadn't had any serious daydreams for a while now, so no one at the campus was aware of her strange talents. She still caught up with Tamara when she was back home for the holidays. Tamara had taken a job at a local childcare centre and was doing her best to get on with her life after Craig's tragic death. It seemed to Rachel that the events of that night had changed her friend somewhat. She'd grown up very quickly and now dealt with the world on a far more serious level. She also now seemed to be far more concerned with the needs of others rather than her own. It was almost as if the events of the night of the accident had somehow opened her eyes to a whole new vision or insight into the lives of people around her. Maybe she felt she'd been spared from harm in the wreckage so that she could find her place in the world. Whatever the reason, it had definitely led to Tamara becoming a far more focused and self-determined person.